Welcome, fellow gamers, and thanks for checking out the very first episode of the Forgot to Save podcast. This will be a twice monthly podcast where we focus on playing the games that we always wanted to play but never got around to. My name is Mike.
And I'm Stone. And if you're wondering who we are and what we do on the show, we'd like to take a second to introduce ourselves.
You can find me on YouTube as Blue Lizard Jello. My site is actually youtube.com/itsBlueLizardJello. I'm a community-driven YouTuber with a focus on the Soulsborne games, and one of the things that I'm best known for are my guide series, my Everything Possible series, where I walk brand new players through the games, helping them to collect every item, do every NPC quest, defeat every boss. But I also do some Let's Plays of various other games, and I live stream 3 times a week.
And you can't yet find me on YouTube, but my channel is Professor Lithos, and I'm going to be introducing interactive guides to Pokemon Sun and Moon, and hopefully all Pokemon games after that. But as of the time of this video, there's nothing on there yet. It's still in progress, so I hope to see you guys in there eventually.
Keyword being yet. You're almost there.
Right, I'm close. I'm not close. If you're tuning into this podcast for the first time, which literally all of you are, I'd like to take an opportunity to explain what we're doing here. This podcast is aimed at playing games we never got the opportunity to play before, that one of us has recommended to the other or really wanted to play.
When Stone and I were actually first talking about making this podcast and we were talking about a name for it, we eventually settled on Forgot to Save because of that feeling, that pit in your stomach when you're playing an older game, going as far back as even the NES, when you literally forgot to save and all the progress you made was gone. Everything that you just did up until that point was erased. So for this month's game, we actually landed on Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. This is a game that Stone did play upon release, but for me, it kind of sat on my to-do list for years up until I just played it over the past week. So Stone, tell us a little bit about the game.
Right. Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor is an open-world action role-playing game that takes place in the Lord of the Rings universe after The Hobbit and before the first Lord of the Rings book. But we'll talk about the specifics of the game in just a moment. First, we want to go over what the schedule is like for this podcast. For the first episode of this podcast, we've already delved into the game a little bit and explored the introduction area, but that won't be the standard for future episodes. What we typically want to do is introduce a new game every month and give a brief overview of the game itself and why it was chosen. And then in a second episode, give you our experience as we've played the game for about half a month. Now, this part is not centered around just the two of us.
Exactly right. What we're hoping is that this podcast actually becomes an interactive discussion with all of you. There are 2 places where we're going to be holding the discussions. One is on the Blue Lizard Jello Facebook page. You can find that at facebook.com/itsBlueLizardJello. The other place is going to be more live interaction via chat on our Discord server. You'll be able to find the links to the Facebook page and an invitation to the Discord server in the description of the podcast, wherever you're listening to it.
And I implore you, when you are discussing the game, if you could try to keep it spoiler-free until the month's end discussion, as well as possibly keeping it family-friendly. Regardless of the rating of the game we're playing, we like to engage all people in our discussion.
Absolutely. So let's get right into the discussion of the game that we've chosen for the month. Again, Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. Now, this game was announced at the end of 2013. It wasn't released until the 3rd quarter of 2014. Like I said, I haven't touched it until this week, until we actually chose this game. Stone definitely has some experience from when it first came out. So, Stone, why don't you actually jump in real quick and just talk about how much you've played of it?
Sure. I did get this game at launch. I'm playing it on PS4, but I know, Mike, that you are playing it on PC, so our experiences might be a little bit different. There is also a PlayStation exclusive mission, but I haven't gotten to it yet. Hopefully, I'll be able to tell you more about that later. When I got this game, I have only put about 8 to 10 hours of gameplay into it. It's not that I necessarily disliked it. It's just that, I didn't get around to playing it, which is kind of the point of this podcast. So It's a good thing we're doing it now. But I would like to go over some of the finer points. We have each played about 3 hours. Is that correct?
Give or take, yeah.
Okay, so we started a new game. We played for 3 hours, so we'd have some discussion here. And I did want to talk about some of the points of the game. To give a brief synopsis of the game, you play as Talion, who is a ranger from Gondor, and in the beginning of the game, you see your wife and child killed in front of you by the Black Hand of Sauron, and you're taken over by a wraith named Celebrimbor, who actually tells you that you are forbidden from dying, and use this as avatar to regain his memories. The bond which brings you together is that you have collectively witnessed the death of your family in front of your eyes.
So, Stone, correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm trying to pay attention, I really am, but during the cutscene after you've been killed, and I have to put air quotes around that, Kellen Brimbor actually says something along the lines of, you're actually forbidden from dying. So I guess this is kind of like a ghost situation where you have unfinished business, and that's why he's joining forces with you?
Right. At first, you don't know. You eventually and very quickly find the link between you and him and why he's able to kind of use you as his avatar. But you do also benefit from us. Your ultimate goal as your character is to be able to undo this curse that was put on you by the Black Hand of Sauron and be able to join your family in death. Now, Mike, with the limited time you played so far, is there any strong attachment you have to either of these characters, or is it kind of too soon to tell? What are your impressions there?
Right now, it's absolutely too soon to tell. Now, the opening cinematic was pretty well done, especially how they kind of interspersed the cutscene and what was going on with the war with the Black Hand and your family, but they also kind of tied in some tutorials within that. I like how games can sometimes do that. It does a good job at introducing the character to you as well as giving you some idea of the controls, but also it makes you feel like you are the character by kind of mixing those two together. But as of right now, Talion, he's kind of he's almost a nameless, faceless character to me. I just don't know much about him yet.
Right, and I think it's cool that he is kind of that blank canvas that you can project whatever your image is onto him. I do also agree. I think the tutorial in this is really well done because there's a bad habit we have in modern games where you make people play through a tutorial and it's excruciating and no one wants to do it. But this one is almost kind of a little handholdy, learn by doing. You don't learn any of the controls until you're at the point where you would need to actually use it. It doesn't start out with, here's a map of your controller and press this button to counter and press this button to attack and this button is stealth. It just kind of says, here's an element, like in the very beginning, you're fighting with your son, you're teaching him how to use a sword, so you show him how to counter, and then you show him how to attack. And then later, when Gondor's attacked, you actually are sneaking around and it introduces you, again, just learn by doing, throws you into the pool.
Yeah, it felt natural. It felt organic. Too many games either err on the side of caution and, like you said, give you an entire tutorial level, or they go the other route and they don't give you anything. And it is all trial by fire. I think this game actually has a really good balance so far.
Yeah. And I think, I know that you personally, we're kind of on other sides of the spectrum there because as someone who plays a lot of Pokemon games, I'm used to that hand-holding. When I know it's easy, I could just go ahead and do this, and it drives me crazy. But you play Dark Souls, which is go ahead, die. If you want to read the notes on the ground, you'll learn how to play. So I think this is a cool middle ground. I think it makes both of us happy because that's what we're accustomed to.
Absolutely,
and it's not too hand-holdy. So, yeah, I think it's a good middle ground. And we're talking like this is a super old game. And I don't remember if you pointed out, but I do just want to say this only came out in 2014.
Yeah,
so
3 years.
Not super old, and they're in fact still making DLC for it. So there's additional stories they're telling with the game. So it's not over yet. So it's a good time to play, especially with Shadow of Mordor 2 just having been announced. But we're playing on two different consoles, so one thing we are going to notice a difference in is the graphics. Now, tell us a little bit about how you were playing on PC, because obviously that's a little bit more beefy than PS4, at least yours.
Sure. So I with my current rig, I am able to play on max settings. So I have everything cranked up to its maximum potential. And the one thing that I've noticed, and you're going to tell me if you've noticed the same thing, is that the graphics seem to be kind of all over the place. The facial animations, the actual character models, especially of the Uruk-hai and the orcs that we're fighting, they are stunning. Mm-hmm. Like, I know that it's only 3 years old, but for a 3-year-old game, the graphics on the character models are absolutely mind-blowing. Mm-hmm. But then when I get out into the world and I look at the texture details on the rocks and the ground and the foliage, it really leaves a lot to be desired. There's a huge discrepancy, in my opinion, from the actual player models to the terrain.
Right. And I won't get too much into the controversy, but we are looking at Warner Brothers, who had some rocky PC releases. I'll say it's pretty well optimized for PS4, which sounds like a stupid statement because most games that come out on a console should be optimized for that console. But everything plays really smoothly, and you're right. The character details are really great. What I remember about the launch of this game, and we won't talk too specific about the launch and reception of the game yet. We'll save that for our second episode. But I do distinctly remember that this was a big game for 4K when it came out. A lot of people were really excited to be able to play this game in 4K because it was decently well optimized for it. I am a 4K snob. I use a 4K monitor, which is just something I feel I should brag about. It's like when early iPhones came out.
You had to bring that up. You had to bring that up.
Listen, I will always bring it up. I will go from Pokemon to 4K with just no shame. I'm going to refer
to my monitor as a 1K.
A 1K monitor?
Yeah, I don't have a 1080p monitor. I have a 1K.
That's true. So, yeah, I mean, in 1K, have you noticed any frame stutter or anything, or do you think it's running pretty well on PC?
No, actually, I've had a pretty smooth experience. I have a frame rate counter going at all times, and 58 to 60.
That's great.
Without an issue, yeah.
Yeah. So, that's another question, and I'll get a little bit into my experience here, but without spoiling too much, in my experience at the very, very beginning of the game, like right after I popped out of the tutorial, there were a lot of people on screen at the same time. And I noticed, obviously, the PS4 was handling it pretty well because, again, it's optimized for the PS4. Were you ever at a time fighting a big mob? Did you notice any frame stutter then?
No, I didn't. And yeah, I've definitely been surrounded. I didn't take count, but I don't know. I probably had at least 15 enemies surrounding me. And I was surprised at how well it handled, especially with some of the actual foliage having some movement and some particle effects, but so far it's been a very, very smooth gameplay.
Mm-hmm. And are you playing with a PS4 controller on PC?
I'm actually using a wired third-party Xbox controller. I used to use my PlayStation 4 controller exclusively, but the software that I used to use for some reason just stopped working, so
I'm sorry.
I had to make the switch.
I was rolling my eyes and I realized you couldn't hear it. I can't
because I'm using an Xbox controller.
A third party.
But I'm not talking about like one of those big clunky see-through. It's actually a very
there's a
ergonomic.
Reason Mad Cats is bankrupt. The podcast is over. Thanks for checking
it's
out.
It's not Mad Cats.
I appreciate you guys coming out. But
it's Power A.
Oh my god.
It's Power A. Truth be told, I actually got this because my girlfriend's hands are too small to hold an Xbox One controller, so I had to go out and find one. Petite, if you will.
If I keep rolling my eyes, they'll get stuck like this. I can't. I'm so discouraged from continuing this right now. So, okay, let's get. So you talked a little bit about what the foliage and stuff looks like. Your character, they kind of, for lack of a better term, parkour their way through the environment. Do you feel like it's really interactive, or do you see an obstacle and like, I had to go around this, or this is annoying, like I'm running into this wall, or do you notice it's pretty seamless when you hit an obstacle like that?
No, it feels really seamless. You know, one of the comparisons that I have to make, and I'm sure it's going to come up again, is Assassin's Creed. Mm-hmm. And I almost say that this game in some ways does parkour better than Assassin's Creed, because in Assassin's Creed, everything that you can climb to me stands out. Mm-hmm. Every ledge, every rock, like you know exactly where you're going to be able to grab. But in Shadows of Mordor, what it seems to be is that it's more natural with the environment itself. Like, so for example, if there's a rock that's jutting out just enough and you think, I wonder if I can grab that, you probably can. It just feels a lot more built in versus standout kind of sore thumb aspect.
I definitely agree with that. And there's actually a perk you can get easily in the beginning is when you jump over an obstacle or when you just hop over one, if you press X for me, it'd be A for you, immediately after putting your feet back on the ground, it gives you a boost. So
yes, I saw that. I didn't take it, but I did see that perk.
I picked up immediately because I played before and I know how annoying it is to try to run from an encounter if you get overwhelmed. So I picked that up as my second upgrade. And you'll find that, one, the environment starts to stick out a lot more to you. You start thinking, how can I use this next thing? Rather than, you know, oh, there's a rock, whatever. You don't pay any mind to it. It's
sure.
How can I tie this into moving to the next rock quickly and getting out of here or traveling across the map as quickly as possible? So it's cool that, you know, the environment becomes more interactive as you go along in the beginning part. We can't really speak to the later game right now because we haven't gotten there yet, but there are later things you can knock down in the environment to help you out. So
that's cool. You make it sound like the environment's kind of like a tool at your disposal.
Right, exactly. And I feel like that's what a lot of Assassin's Creed games should do. As a fan of Assassin's Creed, I can tell you I'm a little ashamed because, yes, like you were saying, it stands out, everything you can climb on. Because in Assassin's Creed, they literally either paint it white or put a white sheet over it so you know you can climb on it. Whereas this one's like, that's a rock. I know I can jump over it because my character jumps over rocks. Like, that just happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, sorry, this is a little bit of a side note, but an interesting tidbit about the title itself, Middle-earth: Shadow of Mordor. As far as my really limited Tolkien knowledge here, Mordor means shadow. So it's kind of a little bit of a play on words, like the Shadow of Mordor. I'm not sure if it refers to Talion himself or the Black Hand of Sauron, or Sauron himself controlling the strings in Mordor. I'm not 100% sure what that's in reference to.
So it's the shadow of shadow.
Right. So I'd like to find out more about it, but
okay,
we'll discuss that more in the second episode.
Yeah, definitely. I'll have to give that some thought because the shadow of shadow, I mean, first it almost just sounds redundant, but I think you can actually get a lot of meaning out of that. All right, we'll table that for now.
Let's just hope it's not intentionally edgy.
SOS.
So another thing I like to talk about, the music and the sounds. It's interesting for PS4, but I'll let you speak to it first. The voice acting, I think, is pretty good in this, but let's hear your opinion.
The voice acting is not terrible. I don't think it's going to win any awards, or I don't think it did win any awards considering it's in the past now. I'll talk about sounds. Music, I'm going to have to be more conscious about it because music, as Stone already knows, is not exactly my forte. So I don't have very much of a strong musical background, and I tend to tune it out. Sound-wise, the game is fantastic. It's so immersive. When you get into a combat and you hear yourself surrounded, especially if you're wearing good headphones, if you're surrounded by the Uruk-hai and you're clanging swords and you hear someone blowing their horn, everything just makes you feel like you're right in the middle of that battle. I couldn't praise the sounds enough, honestly. I think the sound designer just did a fantastic job here.
I agree. And I know with the PS4, they utilize the microphone and the controller a lot. When you're going through leaves, you hear leaves rustling. When you use the Wraith, you hear like the whispers coming through the controller. So right now it's cool in the beginning of the game. I'll let you know how it is later if I'm annoyed and how many times it drains the battery in my controller because I just feel the battery just dying as I'm playing it. But it is kind of cool that, I hear the leaves rustling, and I'm staring at the screen. I'm not paying any attention to my controller. It's kind of another way to immerse you. And there's only one game I know that I've played on the PS4 that I feel does the controller microphone right. And it's so little, but like Infamous does it with like the paint can shaking and little stuff like that. So I'm hoping that I get more out of the sound here and don't have to mute my controller mic. But yeah, that's where I'm at so far. The music, like you said, I haven't really paid much attention to. The scores in the movies, which are really the limit of my Tolkien knowledge, they're pretty big. They're iconic. So in this, to me, it feels a little bit more like ambiance, not really a big score. And it might really fit the setting of the game. I'm going to have to try to pay more attention because unfortunately I didn't just put headphones on and play this like you were saying is how you got immersed in the battles. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to learning a little bit more about the music and how the score plays up the action.
That's a good point, and I'm going to have to pay attention to it because, yeah, in the movies, the music almost sets a scene more than the environment and the characters in it. So, it's going to be interesting to see how does the score actually impact especially the emotional projection that the game, it's going to have to try and elicit at some point. I mean, this is a revenge story about you taking on the murderers of your family. So at some point, they're going to have to try and, use music to tug at the heartstrings, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's weird that we didn't notice it in the beginning when you literally watch your family die. But I think we were wrapped up in the actual story itself. And I was trying to pay a little bit more attention to the voice acting because, like you said, the facial recognition is so good that it does sync really well. So that was actually where my mind was at more, but I do want to keep in mind, sound is the thing we're going to be looking for. Unless you have anything else to say about that, let's hear your experience when you started out. What upgrades did you take? What did you do first thing?
So right now, I actually, I'm kind of a hoarder sometimes when it comes to perk points. I haven't spent all mine yet. I have some saved up. Because I'm looking down the tree. All right, let me talk about the tree. I think the tree is actually pretty well done. When I first opened it up, I had flashbacks to some overly complicated RPG games. And I know you're probably mocking me because you play some JRPGs, so you
love them.
You understand just how complex leveling up can get.
I played all kinds of Final Fantasy 10 and 12 where those trees got crazy.
But so I started looking at it and I started seeing some perks down the tree that I wanted to get, but they were locked, and I thought they were just locked based on prerequisites above them, but they're not. There's certain parts of the tree that unlock as you get more AP, which is essentially your character level, I guess. Or you're not AP, just P, right? Power level, I think is what it's called.
I'm not 100%.
So from my understanding, and this could be wrong, and I'll correct this next time, as you kill some of the high-ranking officials in the Black Hand Army, you gain this P, this power, and that is your overall character level, and that unlocks different abilities, whereas your XP that you gain from your kills and the way you get kills, that is where you actually unlock the points that you can unlock the perks with.
Right, those are AP.
Yeah, that's what it is, yes.
Ability points.
I'm actually more the perks, they're neat and all. I couldn't tell you right now which ones I've chosen because I just kind of saved most of them. I'm really interested in the runes. I think that is a cool system.
Yeah.
So the way that it works is you have your sword, your daggers, and your bow, and each one starts with one open rune slot, and as you kill the different named members of the Black Hand Army, you gain a rune, and that rune could just be bonus damage. It could be a poison effect, a fire effect. It could be any number of things. I think, let's see, for the bow, you get an extra 25% damage on headshots, which is one of the ones I took. And then you can also spend some of your AP, your XP, whatever it is, to unlock additional runes. I think you can get up to 5 or 6 runes per weapon.
Yeah, there's a separate currency for unlocking the runes and doing, getting a bigger health bar, getting a bigger, I forget what it's called for the Wraith meter, whatever the equivalent of that is. Again, we've only played for 3 hours, which actually sounds like a lot, but that currency is separate. So you could be like Mike and hoard all of that, and he'll have 6 rune slots by tomorrow because he is apparently a hoarder with this kind of stuff. Whereas me, it's 100, I can get one thing, whatever, that's all I want.
And see, the funny thing is, I think this actually goes back to our different gaming backgrounds. In the Souls games, in the Soulsborne games, your weapon is your livelihood. So whatever you can do to make your weapon more powerful, in my opinion, is far more important than extra health or stamina or anything. Because if you can kill something quickly, then it can't kill you.
Right.
So I'm focused on the runes, whereas you seem to be more, interested in the perks to increase your character's potency.
Right. The longer I can live, the more people I can frantically flail at and attempt to recover myself when dying. And that's the way I want to take out the army.
Fair enough.
That's cool. I don't want to give you tips on... So I remember very little about my first playthrough of this game. Because, again, I played it at launch. At this point, is 2.5 years. So I don't want to tell you what perks to choose. But I know that I immediately remembered vaulting over those was a must-have. Stunning people immediately after a parry was the first one I went for. And the instant execution those are the 3 that I needed to have. I immediately, when I played the game, I jumped off the tower right in the beginning, beeline toward the objective. I don't know if it was placed there in the world, but there was a one of those big creatures, and forgive me because I'm forgetting the name. Tolkien fans probably screaming at me, but immediately just started hurling rocks at me. I just popped out of the tutorial and I'm already fighting what in my head is a boss-like creature. So I'm trying to run away. I realized I don't have that vaulting perk. I'm running at rocks and stuff in the beginning because that's all I remember from before. I was like, oh shoot. So I'm trying to beeline right up this hill. I get to the top and I find the first enemy I've encountered, interrogate him, find out about a random officer, and take 3 steps and encounter that officer. So I haven't even gotten to the first objective yet. I had this creature chase me down, and now I'm fighting this officer and all these lackeys, and I'm trying to level up as I'm fighting the henchman so I can get ability points to actually be able to take out this officer. Because I'm getting destroyed here. And then I forgot how to heal in the game, so I'm getting chased down. I'm trying to run into a bush, and they're like seeing me, and I'm like, why am I hiding in a bush? This is the dumbest thing I could do. And then eventually I like stumbled across the flowers, which you pick these pick the flowers doesn't sound really that manly, but you use these flowers to regenerate health. But you also have to go through the animation when you pick them up. And when you're being chased by like 8 guys and I keep calling them officers. I think they're generals. But you're being chased by all those people. You don't really have time to pick up all of that. So it got dicey. I died, quote unquote, a few times. This game, when you lose your health, you have the option, I believe, 3 times to regenerate yourself. And it has a circle on the screen, and your cursor is outside of the circle, and you have to drag it into the circle and press whatever button. It's a miniature QuickTime event, which I know is a dirty word for gamers now, but it's a miniature QuickTime event, and I believe you get 3 opportunities in total. So you get that QuickTime event. If you succeed, you get 2 more until you heal yourself before it's game over. And when you die those 3 times, fortunately in the beginning, you don't really get punished. You get back to the tower because ultimately, yes, when I was fighting that general, I did die for my 3rd time. So I had a rough go of it in the beginning. And I don't know if your experience was similar or anything cool happened to you, but before I even got to the first objective, I was down.
Can I tell you, I think I killed 4, if not 5, named orcs or are they orcs or urukai?
They're both.
Both? Okay.
They're 2 different species.
Okay. I again, or just like Stone said, I'm not a huge Tolkien buff. I mean, I think he made great books, but Tolkien, I don't know a whole lot about his universe.
I have a lot of praise for him because this is a little tangent here, but Tolkien did what I believe every great writer should be when they're creating a world like this, and he just had a Bible for the world. Like the Silmarillion is just a textbook of everything you need to know for Tolkien. He made an actual language which is way above and beyond. So I feel like making a game in a Tolkien universe is almost just easy because everything's done for you. There's nothing you can't pull from. But sorry, go ahead. We'll discuss that more in the next episode.
That's fine. So I had killed 4 or 5 of the named orcs or urukai, the members of the Black Hand, before I got to an objective because I had no idea that they were just all over the place, and they just essentially look like any of the other ones. They're on patrol, and you could just accidentally run into them, and all of a sudden I'll be fighting, 4 or 5 of these orcs in one area, and all of a sudden I get this little cutscene introducing this name guy who's on my back, ready to kill me. So it was exciting. It was exciting that I didn't have to go to a map marker every single time I wanted a big battle. They're all over the place.
I do have a lot of praise. They call it the Nemesis system. I have a lot of praise for it. I think it's so fantastic at keeping you engaged. We've only played for 3 hours. Hopefully that system doesn't get worn down. I'm excited to do more of it because I remember a large portion of what I played was just nonstop going after these guys. But, I mean, you find out this is an army. Everyone that goes down gets replaced by another one.
Yes.
And I don't know if sorry.
I was going to say, I'm sure we're going to probably spend a good bit of time next time talking about the Nemesis system because it is something that deserves a good discussion on because it's unique. I haven't seen anything like it in any other game, and it seems to be handled pretty exquisitely.
Mm-hmm. So, like I was just saying, I died from the first general I fought. Did something similar happen to you? Did you see what happens after that?
I know what you're going to say. I didn't get killed by the named person at first. I got killed by just a normal line level grunt. And he got promoted.
Yes. Yep.
It was so cool.
It is super cool.
I actually was proud of him.
Mm-hmm. And then I
said, go you.
The problem is, so I got killed by that first one. And they get promoted when they kill you. He jumped from, he was in the first line. And then all of a sudden jumped to the back. Apparently I was a high profile target. I didn't even know about it. This guy goes top of the ranks. And I'm like, well, I can't take him down and get my revenge yet. That sucks. But when they go up in ranks like that, they also kind of level up themselves. They get
Right.
more abilities and stuff.
Right.
As far as what I remember, I didn't get more intel on him, so I couldn't tell you what perks he got. But judging my previous playthrough, yeah, they get harder to kill, and that's the only person you want to kill after that happens. You're like, I have a vendetta against this person. I'm gonna murder them, and then they murder you again, and then you get sadder.
So I've heard that the game isn't terribly difficult. In fact, I've heard that if you grind early on, it's easy to become overpowered. But what other games, and there's not too many out there, actually make the game more challenging because you're failing?
Dark Souls.
I mean, it's you say Dark Souls. Yeah. In some of the Soulsborne games, they do, especially like in Demon Souls or Dark Souls 2, where the more you die, the more health you've lost. But by and large, most games, and there are some games out there that after you die so many times, you'll actually get a pop-up that says, maybe you should try reducing the difficulty.
That drives me up the wall.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because then it's like, I can do this. Stop it.
And then you have Shadow of Mordor that says, oh, you keep dying. This is only going to get worse because now everyone who's killed you is stronger for it.
Right. And eventually... Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, people are going to stop getting promoted. They're going to find out you're easy to kill. He keeps coming back. Bro, he's not even worth it. Just brush him off, man. Don't get baited. And then they're not going to get promoted anymore.
But yeah, it's a cool system. I mean, it's I've never seen anything like it where, quite literally, it's almost like they're playing their own game on the other side. And for every kill they get, they are getting experience points. They are leveling up. They are becoming more powerful and difficult to kill.
So this is kind of in the spirit of forgot to save here. This is a notion I had when I was really young, playing the N64. I had always thought when I played Star Fox 64, someone in the world somewhere was like controlling Andros. Like that was my thought. Like I'm somehow someone over the internet is playing this opposite character. And I do honestly get that feeling again when I play this game. It's a little bit, I'm not going to say nostalgia, but there's a little bit of that kind of childish innocence that comes back playing this game where I'm getting murdered by these human enslaving monsters. But yeah, I agree with you. I feel like someone else is playing this. And I mean, that'd be a pretty cool like mode to play online. Maybe that's going to be in 2. I don't know. But yeah, I agree that the game itself is kind of the nemesis, like, period.
Yeah.
And I could delve into we could delve into the nemesis system a little bit more, but I want to leave some discussion for the next time.
Absolutely.
And I want to hear people's thoughts on it because I feel like that's the pivotal point of the game. Honestly, that's why I bought this game. I remember seeing it and thinking it's cool. My girlfriend is a bigger Tolkien fan than I am, so she was interested in it. So we were watching, I believe it was at E3 or something, and then Twitch hosted an hour-long gameplay session that was just promoted on the front page, and I got caught up in watching it, and I was like, wow, this system looks fantastic. I want to play that. And, you know, I didn't pre-order because I never pre-order games, but I went out and bought it at launch, and I don't regret it. It's been sitting on my shelf for like 2 years, but I don't regret having it. I never really thought about selling it because it is a fun game. And hopefully we can explore more of that and maybe get hyped for 2. But we'll save some of that discussion later. I want to know, so you ran across the familiar Tolkien character, right?
Are you talking about Mr. Smeagol?
Yeah.
Mr. Gollum? Yes. Not Gollum. Gollum.
Yeah, Gollum.
Gollum is something different. Yes, I have seen Gollum. And is that actually Andy Serkis' voice?
I don't know. I was kind of hoping it was because I didn't find out until pretty recently that was him. But I want to IMDb and check. But the reason I'm asking is because you get a pendant that belongs to our Wraith friend because his name is, for whatever reason, too difficult for me to pronounce right now. When you saw that and you find that is your link to him, you find out that he also witnessed the death of his wife and child in front of him, and maybe that's what bonds you guys together. Did that do anything for you? Did you want to learn more about the Wraith, or were you like, this is kind of an obstacle for me to move on to the next part of the story, or let me get back to just killing these generals? I don't care.
As of right now, I have little attachment to the main character, and I have even less for the Wraith. So until I know more about him, if we get more information about him, he's really, really a side character.
I actually disagree. The first time I was playing it, I was really interested to learn more about him because I feel like, and I know the game kind of acts like, doesn't really act like you're a prisoner, but you do feel like his avatar. I know they don't officially say it, but when it starts out, you feel like his avatar because he's telling you what to do, and he's like, I'm more powerful. Give me a little bit of control. Let me show you how that's done. Me. And I felt like for a brief bit in the introduction, they try to introduce Talianis's own like strong fighting. Like, I don't know if Gondorian is the actual term for it, but we saw them in the movies, and we know like, their fierceness as the Rangers. So it's kind of cool to establish it, but then you find out, this Wraith is actually pretty vulnerable. Like, he immediately says, "Oh, now I wish I would have never remembered that." I was curious to learn more about this. I felt like it was cool. Maybe I could have a connection with this Wraith. It kind of humanized him a little bit, and I will say, from what I remember, his story is really cool. I was excited that I took the time to get to learn more. But I found myself on this playthrough, I knocked it out because I hate Gollum as a character, and well, I don't hate him as a character. I find him annoying and gross, honestly. But I just want to get back to the Nemesis system. That's all I wanted to do. But I do know there is a lot of reward in chasing down a story from what I remember. I'm not exactly excited to do it now, but hopefully by the next time we're talking, that's changed.
Yeah, and just so you know, Andy Serkis does not voice Gollum in the game. It is Liam O'Brien, who is known for many a random video game voice actor.
That is fantastic. I mean, he's no Kingdom Hearts 1 Lance Bass, which I really think
yes.
I think when I was playing Shadow of Mordor, I was like, this doesn't have enough Lance Bass.
This could use a lot more NSYNC, if I'm being honest.
Just any NSYNC. You know what? I feel like they really missed an opportunity to model the Wraith off of Justin Timberlake.
Yes. 10 out of 10, like Skyrim with NSYNC.
I can't stop rolling my eyes at you.
I'm just glad I can't see you.
I feel like, we get closer, like there's this digital high five going on, and then we drift apart so quickly. Oh, I think it's also worth pointing out that Mike and I are not in the same room, although we would like to be doing it in the same room. We are across the country right now. Okay, so let's reserve some to talk about the game for the next episode, and I really do encourage you guys, check out the links that we put on the pages that you are listening to this on currently. I know it's available on YouTube and SoundCloud. Hopefully we can move to other platforms soon, but I want to hear what you guys have to say. If you don't have the game already, I know it's available for less than $20 US, at least for us in the US, but I do encourage you guys to play it if you haven't already. I just want to wind down, though, a little bit with kind of some gaming topics that we've seen in the past few weeks, and maybe get some discussion going on these as well. Blue, why don't you tell us about the first one?
Sure. So the first one, and this is something that I'm sure a lot of you have already talked about, and that's Xbox Scorpio, this project that Microsoft has been working on for the last couple of years that we've only gotten a name, and it's probably just a name that's, their working title. But just in the last week and a half, we finally got the final specs. We finally have an understanding of just how powerful this machine's going to be, and frankly, it's actually pretty beefy.
Oh,
it is pretty beefy.
Let me tell you,
like it or hate it.
Let me tell you what I think about that beautiful those 2 digits, that 4K. Every time I see that, I get real happy. And when we have something running optimized at 4K, I don't know if optimized is the right word. I keep throwing that around. I'm sorry, but they said I saw. It was a discussion, I'm not sure where they said it specifically, but the dev kits came out. Games that were 900p or above on the Xbox One are running 60 FPS 4K, and that is supremely exciting, especially given how intense that these games are to run now that are cross-buy with Windows, like Forza Horizon 3. Forza 3 would be very easy to run on Windows right now. But Forza Horizon 3, pretty much, if you want to play in 4K, requires you to have a 1070 or 1080, or now 1080 Ti. But minimum, in order to run those high-end graphics on PC. So it's really exciting. And I believe, and I'm not sure if this is final, but the price point they're looking at is around 600, right?
They actually haven't announced it.
Okay.
That was kind of my guesstimate. But yeah, I don't think we're going to find out until E3. It is confirmed to be at E3, and I'm sure we're going to get an exact launch date and price point at that point.
And I'm not trying to cry foul from the beginning here. It does have me a little bit sketchy though that they're using the word Xbox content. It is hopeful that we'll get Xbox 360 and Xbox One titles, but the fact that they're skirting around and calling it that has me a little sketched out on what we're actually going to see on it. I'm under the assumption, and I guess that's all we have right now is assumption, that all Xbox One titles will be playable. But
well, not necessarily. So the only thing that Microsoft has confirmed as far as what games are going to be playable is that any game playable on the Xbox One S will be playable on the Scorpio and vice versa. But they didn't go so far to say that every game available on Xbox One will be available on the Scorpio.
Okay.
Now, Sony, with their PS4 Pro, they never said that they would allow for PS4 Pro exclusive titles versus PS4 Pro and original PS4, but we haven't seen any title that comes out for PS4 Pro that's not playable on the original. And I truly think that Microsoft or Sony will shoot themselves in the foot if they try and separate and split the market like that.
Right. I mean, this is, as far as we know, again, high-end console, probably going to come at a premium price tag, for lack of a better term. So what they deliver on it is going to be so key, because the market's already going to be kind of slim. The people that are paying that much for their gaming experience, for more or less, are like PC loyalists. I mean, they're the people that throw around the phrase PC master race. Not a lot of people want to spend that at a console. So if they're going to deliver something like the Scorpio, which I'm excited about, and I'm interested in finding out more, I just hope they have the content to back it up, because that will make or break it.
Right. And I think one of the other things that they're really harping on, like you said, this is considered to be a premium console. It's not even just a premium console, it's a premium media center. Microsoft really did harp on the fact that the Xbox One was not just going to be a game console, it was going to be your all-in-one console. It was going to replace every device you needed in your living room. And the Scorpio seems to be capitalizing on that some more, because one of the things that they have that the PlayStation and PlayStation 4 do not have is a 4K ultra high definition Blu-ray player built in.
I'm fanning myself.
I think the one thing to consider, and this is something that, for anyone listening, please let us know what you think of this. This is kind of a weird place to be in. Now, we've seen re-releases and slimmed down versions of every console over the last decade at least. We've always seen something come out around the halfway mark, but nothing to this extent where they take the actual technology and improve it so much it's borderline another generation.
Right.
But we are kind of right in the cusp of the center point of what could be this current generation. I mean, they were, let's see, the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 were released back in, 2007?
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I was thinking of the 360.
Oh, no.
No, they do not come out in 2007.
2014, right?
Yeah.
So about 3 years?
I want to say 14, because this is one of the first games I got on my PS4.
So, the last generation, I think, lasted way too long. That was about 8 years. But typically about 6 years is the average. So we're right in the middle. So if they're just trying to keep gamers interested for another couple years before they unleash the next generation, fine. As long as they don't split the market by making exclusive games for these respective midway consoles. But, and this is something Stone and I have discussed, and we're concerned, and I think it's a legitimate concern, that this is just the new way of selling consoles. Every 3 years, we get a slight upgrade from the previous iteration, and then they start to just make exclusives for that title, and they just kind of keep this, instead of a very strong marked point between generations, we just get this new spectrum that just slowly blends into each other every few years.
Right, that's my concern, because the last consoles lasted a long time, and I'm worried, is this a way of extending the life of the Xbox One and PS4? Are we looking at 10 years for this console generation?
Right,
and if so, are we looking at games like Nintendo almost did this briefly, but The 3DS came out. The 3DS XL came out with slightly faster, bigger screen. But then the new 3DS came out, and there was one game that was exclusive to the new 3DS. But are we looking at then? We have the Xbox One games coming out, but this particular game is Scorpio exclusive, but it's still technically an Xbox One game. It's within that generation. I don't want this to become stagnant, and I don't want it to be riding completely on PC so that people that don't have a lot of money or can't build enthusiast PCs can't play these games. Without this, like, without the hardware matching the games developers want to make, it's going to become stagnant. We're just looking at AAA titles exclusively because they're the only ones that can keep up with this.
Yes, absolutely.
And that's why Nintendo needs to not make any more hardware and just make games.
In a perfect world, but I think you and I both know that day is nowhere near.
Unfortunately. Well, not for Nintendo because they're 20 years behind, or what year is Nintendo in again?
It doesn't matter because they could sit on their thumbs for the next 40 years and still be profitable.
Right.
But more information on the Scorpio at E3. It's confirmed. We'll get a release date, we'll get a price point, and hopefully we'll get some more information on what titles, hopefully all, are going to be made available.
Yeah, excited. Okay, so, I mean, those are our thoughts on Scorpio. And the next discussion topic, I only just found out about because of you, Mike. So why don't you hit us with the Gearbox announcement?
Sure. So Gearbox Publishing, okay, they've made a number of games in the past, and the one most recently that's getting a lot of media blitz is Bulletstorm. It's not a new game. It's been out for a few years, but they are doing a re-release on PC. But the problem is they partnered with G2A. Now, for those of you who don't know who G2A is, I'm going to just go ahead and, hyperbole aside, they're kind of scum of the gaming industry. They are what is known as a gray market key marketplace, which means that they will sell game keys at a significantly reduced price because they don't care where the key came from. Now, sometimes they are legitimate. Sometimes the developers actually sell some excess keys to G2A at a discount so they can turn around and sell that to you at a discount. More often than not, though, because the marketplace is open to any private seller, so Stone, myself, any of you could go and sell your keys there. It doesn't matter if you stole that key. It doesn't matter if these keys fell off the back of a truck as it was making a delivery. It doesn't matter if you stole a credit card and bought a bunch of keys. G2A doesn't care. Now, they claim that they have all of these checks and balances and these, security protections in place to protect you. But in reality, if you want to make sure your key doesn't get revoked, which happens regularly in this day and age, you have to buy their insurance. So you buy a cheap key, you then have to buy insurance from G2A to basically say, hey, if this ends up being a stolen key and, EA or Ubisoft tries to revoke it, G2A has your back. But you have to pay them for that luxury.
Mm-hmm.
Gearbox made the unbelievable decision to partner with G2A in order to release their Bulletstorm Full Clip Edition.
Mm-hmm.
That didn't really go over all that well with the gaming community, especially when Total Biscuit, Stone and I are both some Total Biscuit fans for the most part. I have my qualms, but that's another episode.
Yeah.
He called them out and called them out hard. I mean, he basically said, if you are honestly going to partner with G2A, who is known to sell stolen keys, then you are just as bad as them.
Right.
And I mean, it blew up. I know Reddit absolutely ran with it to the point where finally Gearbox actually severed their contract with G2A.
Right, and it concerns me that didn't die in the first discussion that came up. It's crazy that didn't. Like, do they not think about who you go in business with? That's a reflection of yourself and your company. Mm-hmm. Why is that not something you'd investigate first?
Mm-hmm. I mean, and Gearbox I don't even want to say in their defense, when they were in discussion on what to do with their contract, they gave G2A an ultimatum. They gave them 4 things that they had to change as a business in order to continue their contract. And I forget what they were. And I think Total Biscuit actually helped them draft it, which is kind of cool. But I think one of them was the G2A Shield, the insurance that they sell, that had to be made free for every purchase. And G2A said, nope, we're not changing. This is who we are. We're going to stand by it.
I think it's like the stereotype of like the girl in the movies. It's like, no, I can fix him. I can change him. Like I can make him better. I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know if they were trying to be like the digital vigilante and trying to clean up the streets here, but it's a tough one to pin. I do want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but at the same time, it does reflect on them as a company and that culture that they're creating. If they want to be, in lack of a better term, in cahoots with G2A, then you're just rolling over and allowing this to happen to consumers, which,
yes,
without them, you'd have no product, obviously. And the gaming community is the most loyal consumers you can get. Like, where else? Nobody's a fan of Tide. Nobody goes out and like, oh man, I'll only buy Tide. I love Tide. I can't wait for Tide's next product. No, but you can do that with Bethesda. I mean, I don't understand why I don't know where that thought came from. I don't have a lot like useful to say on it. I'm just still in shock.
No, it's mind-blowing that they ever thought that would go over well. At least they pulled out, but it didn't really seem like it was we've come to the decision. It was more of okay, you guys found out, now we're going to have to backtrack.
Yeah.
So, Gearbox, get your head out of your butt.
Right.
Don't do that again.
And
you're already on thin ice.
Speaking of Microsoft, next quick topic, I think a positive move, but they've kind of adopted Steam's refund policy, where now if you buy digital content, you're not happy with it, feel free to refund it. And
in fact, it's identical. It is actually the exact same refund model. So the game has to have been purchased within the last 2 weeks, and you have to have less than 2 hours played.
Right. And I am in full support of more people taking that over. In fact, it's weird that EA did it first because they love keeping your money. But I do think it does, and I know you want to talk more about this, but the pressure for Sony, what are you thinking on that?
They would be foolish not to. They would be foolish not to. It is pro-consumer in every way, shape, and form. In fact, EA, from my understanding, one of the reasons they first adopted it is because in the EU, they have a lot more consumer-friendly laws that are already in place, and they had to allow for digital media returns. Whereas here in the States, we have no protection whatsoever from an actual national standpoint when it comes to digital content. In fact, we don't own it. We are technically licensing these games, and at any point they can be taken away. But at this point, it gives some control, more power into the gamer. Play a game, 2 weeks later, you only have an hour and a half in it, and you say, you know what, this just isn't for me. Return it. You shouldn't be held responsible for a game that doesn't live up to its expectations because you bought it digitally. If you buy a physical copy, even if you can't return it because, we do have the copyright laws, you could still trade it in or you could sell it. You could get something back for the mistake. And it's about time. And if Sony doesn't follow suit, they're honestly going to be seen in a very negative light.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know, this I don't want to get into it too much, but this generation of consoles is a little weird because we're moving into more digital content, and it's not the same as it was last generation, but I feel like constantly we're having little minute tweaks, and then the marketing departments are blowing them out of proportion. Like, yeah, now we have this little thing, now we have this little thing, and nothing big is happening. I'm afraid that we're moving toward a more stagnant generation of consoles here, and I'm hoping that, I don't know, maybe enough of these little things will add up. But I do think this is a step in the right direction. It's good to see some positive news with this kind of stuff lately. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm hoping, Sony balls in your court.
And, I see it as a chance to try out games risk-free. I think that it's going to encourage me to honestly play more games that I would never have tried out. And if I end up loving them, great. I just got introduced to a new genre or a new game title. And if I don't like it, I get my money back. There's no way that they're going to lose money on this, in my opinion.
I think a good way to find out new games you want to play is with a pretty cool podcast that has a really bad pitch right now.
Really? Which one would that be?
I'll get the name to you later.
Fair enough.
But all right. Well, I mean, I think that's all we have as far as the gaming news. Really, I do want to thank everyone who stayed this long, especially as many times as I had to roll my eyes at Mike here. But I really hopefully look forward to a discussion with you guys on the Discord, on the Facebook page. Again, those links will be available on the pages of which you're viewing, whether that be SoundCloud or YouTube. And I look forward to interacting with you guys, finding out what you like about these games, dislike about these games, or want to add to it. And we would love to discuss your comments on the next episode. So if you get them into us and we see something, really worth mentioning, I do want to pull you into the discussion. Hopefully we can hear what you say on the next episode, because frankly, what I have to say isn't terribly interesting sometimes.
Ain't that the truth? No, but really, guys, we want to hear from you. So post your comments, give your discussion, and whether you've played the game through and through over and over, or you're just starting it along with us, let us know. We'd love to hear your feedback.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. This has been the Forgot to Save podcast, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the 1st of May. Have a good one, guys.
Bye, everyone.